Hello. Go for it. Did you say go for it as in like say hello and do the introduction that I never do and say hi everyone?
Yep, get us
Welcome to Live and Unscripted as Jen
get
works
us through.
out the bugs on logging into LinkedIn. Wow, look at this shade of tomato red right now.
You're doing such a good job.
So excited to have you guys here today on Live and Unscripted. What is Live and Unscripted? Well, one, you're with Ligia spelled Ligia. I almost forgot my name there. And with, are you on this side? Are you going to say your name or do you want me to say your name?
I don't know if can you see me?
I can totally see you. You've
Then
been
I
in the
will
shot the whole time.
I will work really hard not to pick my nose or anything like that. You're with Jen Saunders. Also with Live. There we go. Okay, I think I got that kink worked out. That it's always super fun when we hop on here and we don't know there's a kink until we've hit go and then it says, ta-da, you have something that's not functioning properly. And we're on and Ligia gets to be red like a tomato. Ligia, thank you for
I could go that shade of red. That was awesome.
It's awesome.
Thank you.
You're like, wait, what? Do what? I couldn't even see you because I was on a different screen.
Oh.
And I wasn't sure that you could see me. So hopefully we are now going live in our Righteous Rebels Facebook group and on YouTube, the Righteous Rebels YouTube page, and in LinkedIn. If not, then you can watch the replay at therighteousrebels.com.
Yes, on /live and unscripted.
Thank you. That's one of the lovelies of being live and unscripted is we don't go back and edit our programs. We don't do all of that stuff. It's what you get is what you see, which is part of what I love about what we do is it's you get what you see. We really do our best to be integrous and authentic and to show up in all of the places that we're in, like we're showing up to you now. And that means you get to deal with some of the stuff live and hope that we did it correctly. So, correctly. Like we got the logins right. Honestly, it freaks me out because I am not to date, not a super techie person. And probably partly because I don't care to be, bless you. I want the understanding, but there are other things that feel more important to me than sitting down and figuring out that when I know that Ligia has more of a genius that way, and there are other people in my that way. Oh my gosh, sometimes that's so weird. Usually I have to point that way.
Go ahead.
That Ligia and that other people in my sphere have, mad skills that way. So it just it's always a little like nerve-wracking for me. But hey, welcome to Live and Unscripted with Jen and Ligia. Ligia, thanks for getting us again kicked off in such a really like kind of way. I wish I could have seen the red tomato. Was it like the picture that's above you?
I swear it was like very comparable to that. Like even my neck and chest, like everyone red. Like, what the?
Oh,
kind of like this.
That's awesome. So Live and Unscripted is a program that so years ago I started a podcast called Living It Courageously Exposed. This is basically an extension of that podcast. I got tired of going in and doing all the production stuff when really what I am striving to model for you is just how to live life without all of the production, without all the filters, without all the things, to just be real and to be you and the person that you're sent here to be, living out your purpose and your passions and doing it in a way that feels sometimes I hesitate to use the word authentic, but that feels authentic to you. I feel like that word gets tossed around a lot and has become a bit buzzy, but that's really what it is. So, Live and Unscripted is a program where I started interviewing people actually from across the world, thanks to LinkedIn. And these were people that I didn't know. I'd had maybe a 10-minute, 15-minute conversation with them, discovered that they had something incredible to share. And then we actually met each other right here on this platform. And what I have found is that those conversations bring some of the most beautiful messages and insights into people. And that what the other piece that I love about it is it gives our lived experience. This is my perspective and opinion, is that it gives our lived experience meaning and purpose. And that whether it's the challenging things we experience or it's the more uplifting and joyful things that we're experiencing, that when we get to share them with other people, our lives have deeper meaning to them, and helps us live out our purpose and our passion. So it's something that I'm passionate about. I get nervous and I get super excited, and every week I love the opportunity to come and sometimes be in what feels uncomfortable, because believe it or not, I do still have a shy side, and I don't always love being around big groups of people, although at the same time I do. So it gives me an opportunity to just continue to grow myself. Um, we have we do have a scheduled guest for the 27th of September, Brandy Morris from Canada. She's a coach, and evidently she's fairly new into the world of being an artist. And so I'm excited to hear her story. We're going to let Leah take the lead on that conversation. And I'm excited to bring. I've looked at some of Brandy's stuff, and I don't know her. I've never had a conversation, and so super excited to bring her to Live and Unscripted on September 27th. The other announcement has to do with the river trip, and we'll bring that one in more near the end. But let's get started how we usually do, which is not a lot of 7 minutes of talking, but with some breathing. So I love the concept of just breathing and taking a moment to get our hearts and our minds into coherence, into a slower state where we can be really present with where we're at. And in this space, what that looks like is a small breathing exercise where you and I together get to let go of anything that's already happened in the day. And we get to let go of anything that we think is going to happen or that is in our planners or our schedule that is scheduled for the rest of the day. And we get to just be right here, right now, where magic happens, where we can make conscious choices and conscious decisions. And what it also does is it lends to the conversations that we're having here when you join us in that space of presence. And so, because I was feeling a little tender before we got on this program, and I still am, I've invited Leah to just lead that breathing today. And again, we do it in a way that we're inviting you to join us, but also giving you a model that you can use easily, simply in your day, and that if necessary, you can use it often in your day. So Leah, I'm going to turn that over to you and just say thank you for taking that on today.
Yeah, for sure. I love that's one of the things I noticed when I first came into the world of Live and Unscripted, and that you take time at the beginning of the show to do that. I think we overlook it so much, and all because of the reasons that you've already mentioned. So I'm just going to invite you to just find a comfortable spot, and I like to put my hand on my heart, just to feel it. It's a way to connect to my body, and you can have downward gaze, or just close your eyes, and we're just going to just take a 4-count breath. We'll do the box breathing, but really, when I do this, I really set the intention of how I want to feel. So taking time when I'm breathing in to notice where I have tension in my body, or what's feeling uncomfortable, and breathe into those places. And then as I'm exhaling, allowing that energy to move out. So yeah, so to start with that, we'll close our eyes or downward gaze, and then just breathe in for a count of 4. Hold it for 4. And breathe out. Try and pay attention to how your feet feel, or the clothes on your body, or how your body's sitting. Can you feel your heart in your hand? Can you hear it in your ears? Taking time to pay attention to what's floating through your head, and bring it back to your breath. We'll take it for one more. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And just take a second to notice how you feel. What goes through your head, Jen?
Oh my gosh. Today I actually can feel the weight of my body like pushing to my sandals, and my sandals pushing into the mat that's under my feet, because I'm choosing to stand today. I noticed I have my hand in my pocket, and I have a tissue in my pocket, so I felt that tissue, kind of how it felt in my hand. And then I honestly was like, just noticing thoughts going in and out, and a lot of those were around just how listening to you today as you stepped into this, and just thinking what a beautiful job you're doing at it, because I know when I've asked you to do it before, it's been a little like apprehensive, and that you just gratitude today, and just excitement at watching you do it. So, and then just like getting really excited for this conversation.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. So how shall we kick off this conversation today?
Oh my
Today we're
gosh.
all about the big river trip that we were talking about for most of this year.
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I still honestly feel like every day I am processing pieces of that experience and what actually took place, and just the fact that we got to do it the way that we did it, and that we followed through. And the thoughts coming to me, like, I guess the way to start is by this: is one, we just had our first Sur-vibing Life and Leadership River Retreat. We had it the 14th through the 20th of August. And it was an incredible experience. And it wasn't just the experience of being on the river. It's everything that took place in order for that event to happen, which takes us clear back to last October, where and maybe even before that, when an invitation showed up to go speak in India, and all of the stuff that surrounded that decision, and the pull that I felt, and I think Leah will share similar things as to what that pull is, um, and then all the things that took place in India, which is a conversation for another day. And because we're coming up on the year mark, I know Leah and I have chatted a little bit, or maybe I just think I've chatted with Leah about this, about talking about that experience. But then, because that's really what kicked off this river trip whole concept for me anyway. I love, part of what I do is I create events for people to have really hands-on experiential opportunities to learn what it is that you want to learn, and to be able to do it in a way that is physical. So that piece is in it, because we learn things slowest through our physical bodies. Um, so that it really sticks, it really anchors the lessons, and you just have this like full on experience. And so while I was in India, I had opportunity to talk to a few of the people there, and ideas started generating, and how to really move forward. I was in a place where I was feeling um, maybe stuck is the right word. Definitely, like I wasn't moving forward as I would like to. I was looking for my tribe, but maybe it was more about looking to really build what that tribe looks like, and who are those people who were going to come and be a part of this amazing thing that Leah and I are creating. uh, and then the entire process that goes along with that, which again is a conversation for another day. But in regards to the actual river trip, it was something that I planned the end of last October, and started that ball rolling. And it's been amazing to see all of the things that have like taken place. Like I'm there's so many, and conversations with building creations with the lodge that we work with, and getting to meet the people who are there, the general manager. So and then having an opportunity to go and stay at the lodge, and to meet the cook, and to meet the wranglers, and to meet the people who were there just doing work, and getting to feel the vibe and the energy of that, and the excitement of um, oh, we'd had the opportunity to start engaging with Kate, who is in charge of the guides there, and the river rafting portion of it, and just watching how all of these things came together, like the discomfort of pushing my boundaries and my edges, and having conversations and signing contracts and doing all the things that just felt so super um, almost out of reach for me in some instances, in creating this process of an amazing way to bring people like you into this incredible learning of self, and to do it in a way that um, is super real, that has really raw moments, that um, allows you to just like cut out the noise of all the things around you, and to really just learn how to hear your own voice, and to feel your own heart, and to know what it's asking and calling you to do, and to live in this space of just being. And it's been interesting that as I'm creating that for you, I'm getting new levels of it for myself. And again, I know Leah is as well, and we're getting to share things together. um, and just in this process of meeting other people who are real, and watching who has, this is tender, watching who's coming to the picture, as I'm wanting to build this thing, and not wanting, but as I'm building this thing, and having those interactions with people who actually see the vision, and who can feel the heart, and wondering if it's really going to happen, and all of the process of like, oh my gosh, how do we, the goings abouts of reaching out to you, and helping other people see the vision. So it's just been this entire process. It wasn't just the river. The river was just like the culmination of all of our efforts, and all of our learning, and growth inside of ourselves. And so that's how I would start, just saying, holy cow, what a crazy um is it 10 months now? What a crazy 10 months it's been. And that's not even just the river. There's so much to say about that. But what about you, Ligia? Like leading up to, I feel like there's so much more I can say, and it's like all in there, but it's all just kind of it's formulating. So as
So
it formulates, like what's your experience up to that point?
um, I have a thought, Jen. You hadn't shared with me about the anniversary thing, and I think that's a really great thing to lead into. Um, and just my thought is um, just around the river trip and getting to that point, and um, there is a lot to share there, but when I think of the river trip and when you had shared the vision for that, um, it had a whole different feel and different support behind it. And I think as we got to see, I think the most important part about the river trip is that we got to do it the way that it was intended to be done, instead of falling into how other people would market it or how other people would share it or how other people saw it could be done different, or the moments where they're like, this is too big, you need to do it a different way. That we had an opportunity to really prioritize what actually mattered and what we wanted it to look like. Um, and just getting to go through some of the growing pains, but I love all the opportunities we've had to meet different people and along the journey. And when you're talking about how
Wow.
a door just slammed upstairs, like
It was
the
loud
windows are
through
all
here.
open, huh?
It was loud through here. Made me jump.
Tomato. There we go. Good Lord, that scared me.
Oh,
I don't even remember what I was saying other than
meeting people that we got to meet, that we were able to experience it the way it was designed to be experienced.
yeah. And I remember having moments of um, people with, I'm going to say it's a different experience, and just suggesting it be done a different way, but really honoring what it started off as for you, and what you invited me to um, to build with you, and just how important it was to have that experience, and not really knowing the why or having words to put to it, but knowing that it was important and that it needed to happen that way. And much like the pull of going to India and the pull of a lot of the other things that we've been in the process of creating and building. And um, I think one of the most beautiful things about the river trip is when we thought it wasn't going to go forward, and um, and that it was going to look different, and that just all the variations of what it was going to look like, and then that it wasn't going to happen at all, and that because of the relationships we had built, um, it was able to happen in a way that was just beautiful and just eye opening, and just it was just an amazing experience.
So let's talk about those moments that you just talked about for a minute, of like a few weeks before this trip is supposed to happen. We're having conversations with, our team, with the lodge, and recognizing that what we thought we were going to be able to do based off of chatting with other people, and again, the support that we thought was going to be there, not necessarily being there, or being there in the way that we thought it was going to. um, and then having all of those feels of like what it pushed in me anyway, of like, oh my gosh, I don't have the support I need to like accomplish what it is that I want to accomplish. Like it pushed a lot of buttons for me, and recognizing that it really caused me to go inside and ask myself, like, why am I doing this? Am I doing this for notoriety? Am I doing this to gain other people's uh, it's not support, accolades? Am I doing it to, like, I really had to check in with that and find out like what it is. And really it's because my own experiences of going through challenging things in life and then getting an opportunity, mostly through running at that point, to really have physical learning along with the mental, emotional, and even spiritual learning, and how it shifted my world. How I started to see myself differently in all of the ways, and then how I saw people differently, how I saw the world differently, how I started interacting differently. And that's the piece that I love about this opportunity. And even though I hadn't done it myself yet, um, I knew that there would be great value in providing this opportunity for people, because it's more than just a river trip. So it gave me a chance to like really check in with why I was doing it. And I totally lost the why I was going there.
I think in line with what you're
The
saying, though,
piece of not being able to do it. So when it didn't happen, or it wasn't I was like, like, am I actually okay if this doesn't happen this year? I really had to check in with those pieces too and be like, did we do everything that we could do? Yes. Did we, is it going to, if I'm feeling embarrassment that it might not have happened, like why? It really gave me a chance to like self-reflect of, what does success mean? Why was I doing this? And does it mean anything about me?
well, and trusting that it's supposed to look the way that it is, like it's meant to be that way, and that maybe as ambitious as we were in promoting and just finding, connecting with people and reaching out, that maybe we just weren't ready for that stage of experience, and really looking at why, like you said, why you want to do it. And I think what appealed to me, um, I remember years ago, um, senior year of high school, going on, it was a 6 day, a week long, I don't know, 5 or 6 day canoe trip. And, you're portaging and you're camping out in the wilderness and all that. And you're with your classmates. And I was new to that school, and it was just it's a really interesting point in my life. And I had never done anything like that. And we were out in Algonquin Park here in Ontario, a beautiful remote place. And I remember like jumping into like, yeah, of course I want to do that. I'm all for it. And then getting to that point where, we're at the cabins and you stay there for the first night, and then the next day you're packing up to take off. And I just remember this overwhelming, like, just this fear that came over me of getting in the dang canoe, and just how emotional that was for me. And then, really asking myself, like, why at that moment, what was it in that moment that just became so real and so raw. And it's just, and I think it was a letting go, and trusting that I can be with a bunch of strangers, because again, I'm new to this school, I don't know anyone in these classes. It was at the beginning of the year too, so I don't know anyone. And here I am out in the wilderness for 5-6 days, and just the fear of that I had to let go, and trust that I'm going to be okay, and I can function in this space that I don't have any experience in. And I think, now that I reflect back on when I first met the guides, on the at the lodge for the river trip, I think that now that I'm thinking back to
Yeah.
it, it's that moment of like, oh my God, I get to trust these baby guides that I'm going to be okay out in the middle of absolute nowhere, in a country I'm new to. And just just calming some of those fears and anxieties. And I remember for the canoe one,
I was hoping you would bring this up.
Yeah, like it was scary because it means that you have the opportunity to practice trust, and that's not something that always comes easy to us. Because I think, at least for myself, I've, in the last, however many years, I've really prided myself of not needing anyone, and I can look after myself, and I can do it all alone. And, like, but that really isolates you. And when you can't do it all alone is really what it comes down to. And there's points where you do need to practice trusting others, and that can be really scary, especially when you're used to doing it all. So to have that moment come up again as we're taking off was, it really poked some buttons for me. And I know I even might have snapped at Jen at one point, because I didn't know what it was. I didn't know, like, I didn't even know where it came from. And, but it led to some really beautiful conversation, and that we could talk about it. And, that I could just sit back and, like, oh, this is what this is, and this is where it's coming from. And that it had nothing to do with Jen or anything that she was saying or doing. It was me reacting to being in a fear state of, like, oh my God, I'm actually doing this thing that's terrifying.
And my guides are babies.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
let me just, like, clarify that. When we say baby guides, we love these 4 characters. Like we've been trying to decide how they're like our siblings. I feel like they're my siblings, like my baby siblings, although they could be my kids. But we had this beautiful soul connection, I feel like, as we were on the river, just because it was the 6 of us. But when we met them, we're like, oh, they're between ages 20 and 25. And I know Ligia had that moment of, like, I'm putting my hands on this river in the life of babies. And that can be shocking, especially when you have concerns that maybe you're not even quite aware of. And we're just going to call them our baby guides for now, but they are big, beautiful, wise souls who live life in a way that I absolutely loved watching, and something that I've had to learn how to do in my world, and they're doing in their young age. And they're willing to sit in it and receive some of the pushback from people who are like, yeah, but there's traditional ways to do things, and you've got to go to school, and you've got to do this, and they're following their hearts. And so to be able to have interaction with them through the course of the week, and to have the conversations that we had, it was very soul filling. And I have a very deep love and respect for our baby guides, who are, I'm just going to call them my siblings. Like, it took about, 3 seconds really on the river to recognize that we were in really great hands, and that they are more than capable and able and confident, and have the skill and ability to take care of us, and which they did every step of the way. So huge kudos and loves going out to our baby guides. Please don't take offense to that, kiddos. We love you. So we just a big cute shout out to Jack and Sebastian and Arden and Ellie for making our trip even more amazinger. And we really look forward to, hopefully we'll get to have Ellie and Arden next year on the river trip, because, oh my gosh, I would love to introduce them to you. And we'll have Kate next year as well. That moment of Ligia recognizing, like, oh my gosh, there's more here than I really thought. That was such a beautiful moment. And I love how you brought that out of, like, it gave us opportunity to have some deeper conversation about what we were feeling and what was going on, and what nerves were there that maybe we didn't recognize and notice. And to just like normalize that for ourselves, but then also to be able to normalize that for you, the person who's going to come with us on the next trip, to just say it happens, and it's natural and it's normal, and we got you.
Yeah. I think part of that is the whole river trip experience, though, like that keeps coming up for me is the opportunity to get on the boat, and you're just, the person who gets on that boat is not the same person who gets off at the end of that river. And
No.
just because you're disconnected from every other distraction, you are immersed in just this awe-inspiring beauty. And I had Jurassic Park theme song like running through my head a lot of that trip, just because it's so untouched by human hands, and it's like it's got a prehistoric feel. You're in a canyon. Like, I just found myself a lot of time just in awe, looking around me and taking it all in, and just feeling into that whole experience. And it's such a beautiful opportunity to step out of what your roles are, the ones that you practice on a daily basis. And whether that's mom, or that's you lead a team, or you're part of a church community, like whatever that looks like for you, that you're out of that role, and you get to just be with yourself, and in a different community of people where the dynamics are going to be different, and you get to show up in a way that maybe you might not have the opportunity to always show up as, because you're trying to be these things for other people, or be supportive to other people, and it gives you an opportunity to try on maybe a different hat, and give you space to be curious, and to learn about others, and really learn about yourself, and how you're looking at the world, and I think I noticed more what's going through my head, and just, or the moments where there was nothing, and just how, like, oh, just how nice that felt.
Right. Well, and we went at a time when 2 weeks prior to us going, there was we were still in an active fire zone, but we saw smoldering trees. There were places we couldn't stop on parts of the river, but ours was very small compared to 2 weeks prior, where they were in the smoke. They saw burning trees. They saw what was going on. I was saying that for a reason. Just the experience of being out there and in the energy of it. I'm doing two things at once. I'm pulling up the journal pages that we wrote in of things that we wanted to remember from the river, as you're talking about that. So I love the piece that you're like, it gives you the opportunity to just be. And in some ways it kind of forces you and not force, you just don't have a choice but other to be, or to just really be out of your mind.
There's no distraction. Like, you don't have your phone. You have other people around you. And we chose to do it via kayak. So that gave a whole other experience.
Yeah. And we're going to get there. But I love, we had heard about the energy of this canyon, and the history of this canyon, and it is steeped in both. It's the longest untouched stretch of river in the continental United States. There's no dams. It's 80 miles of no access roads. You get in and you go 80 miles until you can get out. And being able to feel the energy of, even though we were going through places that had been burned, it still had this beautiful, amazing energy, and thinking, that's all part of the cycle of life and the renewing of things. And there's a stretch of canyon. I don't want to give it away. But there's a stretch of canyon that you feel the aliveness of that stretch of canyon. Everywhere you look on the canyon walls, you feel its aliveness. And I'm not going to tell you what that is because I don't want to give it away. It was incredible to feel the energy of it and to just like think of the history and different ways that those things could be appearing, and to recognize just like how alive everything is, and to remember how alive we are, and how often we wander around like the walking dead, the living dead, and how not inside of ourselves we are. And I think that was probably one of the biggest takeaways for me, is because we had the opportunity, like Ligia said, to do it in inflatable kayaks, which are affectionately called duckies. We were the little duckies. Each guide had their own pack raft, which is a completely 180 experience to the inflatable kayaks. We also will have another paddle boat opportunity for people to be a part of, to go on the river. That again is it's like the intermediate experience of these two. Ligia and I paddled 76 miles of the 80 miles, which means we went through all the rapids of varying intensities and fierceness that river provides. And I think just that one of the greatest things I notice is just the being able to really be present with myself in that experience, and to be so close to it because we were in the kayaks, and this opportunity to really get in my body and to trust that my body knew what to do. And I had to let my mind go, because it was wanting to go crazy in moments, especially that first day. Like even the baby rapids were like, keep your nose down the river and paddle. And I hope, you're nervous even over the baby ones. And like day 2, you're feeling more comfortable. And day 3 is a whole different experience. And it just was really fun to watch myself be more of me, and to just like feel myself, trust my body more, and trust my instincts, and to let go. And I love that piece where like sometimes there's just all these thoughts that just wander through, and sometimes there was just nothing. It was just like awe and looking around at just all the magnificence, and to really have I don't know if it's all the thoughts and you don't recognize what they are because they're all coming at you at once, or if it really is just like, wow. Wow. And yeah.
I think it was interesting how you could really look at how you move into new rapids, and I think of the moments like I had this want to just sing to myself, whether it was a song I knew or one I made up or an annoying theme song, or just like a want to sing to myself. And
my want was to get Ligia away and far enough away from me that she wouldn't bump into me in a rapid, so that I could pay attention to what was going on and breathe.
Yeah. And it's just so funny. So there's one rapid, one of the first big rapids that we went to, and we parked our boats or kayaks and whatever on the side to go scout this rapid,
Oh
so
my gosh.
the guides can tell us what are the lines, where do we go, it was one of the bigger ones. So
that felt nerve-wracking to me. Like, wait, we're getting out of our boats and we're going to go above and we're going to watch this and we're going to watch a guy. Like, it was crazy to watch what my mind was wanting to do, and to feel in my body what, like, okay.
Yeah. I just thought it was so fun to just have that experience and see the rafts go down. And I think it was Ellie was explaining, okay, here's the golden rock and see the green tongue, and she's describing all these things, something about a flaky rock, and I could see myself like, yeah, sure, I see it all. And then we go and get in our kayaks and stuff. And I think I went first. Did I go first or did you?
Um,
I think I did.
I think you went first through that one because I had the GoPro on.
Yeah. So I remember going in first and remember thinking to myself, I have no idea where this flaky rock is, but there's the golden rock. I think this is where the green tongue is. And then just singing to myself in Spanish and like, oh, well, I guess we'll see how this goes and just go through it. And it was just such an interesting experience for me because that's a lot of how I operate in my life. Give me enough to go off of, get a general idea, and then I'll figure out the rest as I go. Or I'll make it up as I go. Like it was interesting, but also noticing the self-soothing of like singing to myself to move through it. And I thought it was so interesting when we were talking with Ellie later, how she talked about when she was doing some of those rapids, how she would sing to herself too, and just how, you know, different walks of life, but yet we have these core ways of finding comfort in new and challenging situations, physical situations, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. I found it interesting because, especially at that moment right there, a conversation that we'd had earlier in the week with my mom, when we were sitting at her house and I was asking some questions, and she's like, I don't see, I'm not sure that I can help you or give you um, this next level of stuff because I don't feel like I can give you anything that would be, you're not afraid of anything. And I laughed to myself. I'm like, yeah, I am. Like, I, I've just learned to, I've chosen to just, you'll hear me say, take fear for a ride. I've learned to just take those things that feel scary for me and do the thing anyway, because otherwise that fear would be paralyzing for me. And so many times on the river, I thought of that conversation. And in the moment that LIgia just explained, I really felt it probably for the first time in a really like visceral, physical way. Cause I was like, oh, we just got out of the boat to go scout this wave. And there's a little boy at the bottom saying, is that your guide over there? How come he's going like this 10-year-old, 12-year-old is like, I was like, oh my gosh. And we're looking at the wave. And like LIgia said, here's the green tongue and the golden rock. And you got to stay over here so you don't hit the rock. And the flaky rock, I saw the flaky rock, by the way. It was underwater. There was splashing water up over it. So it looked like a white flake. Yeah. And then there was waves. And I remember, you know, our guides were amazing because they do this often and they're familiar and they take into account the pushing of edges. I went to have my edges pushed. But also the knowing of like, it's okay to get in the bigger boat. Like you don't have to do it in the ducky. We know that that's a really challenging way to do it. And they were very kind with that. And at that point, Ellie was saying to me, you don't have to do it. Like you really can get in the boat. It's so easy to put those duckies on and we'll just go through it. And I remember hearing my mom's voice saying, you don't have things that you're afraid of. And I'm thinking, like, hell, I don't. Like this moment right here, right now, where I'm having, well, we had helmets on all the time, but LIgia, was that one of the rafts or one of the waves they put their helmets on? It was. They put their helmets on for 2 waves.
I remember it for the last one and the big mallard. That was not
Big
the
mallard.
yeah.
Right. So they did on this one. But I just remember saying, no, I actually do have to do this because I feel afraid and I want to move past that. So we have a video we made at that spot and we'll put that out later. But for me, that was one of my things is really feeling that anticipation and feeling the fear, but the wanting to have the physical experience of knowing that I can do it so that when I'm in my everyday life and I'm feeling obstacles or like I've got to go follow the green tongue and get around the golden rock and get around the flaky thing, like when those obstacles appear in my everyday life that I can go, I did that really hard thing on the river and I can do it here too. Just that confidence that builds and that knowing that, like, even though when we got on the river, I had this much experience, that's a big zero of how to do this. I'd never done anything like it. And I didn't anticipate, honestly, doing it the way that we did it. But every day it was like, no, this is the way to do it. And that was crazy. I
That's
followed the
great.
guides. I followed Ligia. My experience was like, get the instruction and follow.
Yeah, it was. I think it was really neat to step into that experience, just because I too had zero experience other than my canoe trip when I was a senior. But I just love the edges that it pushes, like you said, of really stepping into what you're really capable of. And it makes me think of all the places in our life that we shy away from doing things that we have a curiosity about or that we really want to do, because it requires time, energy, but also, varying from what's comfortable and what's normal for you and what's, how to do the thing. So why would I want to be uncomfortable and be a beginner somewhere else when, and have the feelings of being self-conscious when I'm comfortable here and I have autonomy here and I don't need anyone here, but really having that opportunity to push those boundaries for yourself and see what you really have and the tools that you already have inside you that you don't often exercise because you don't put yourself in those situations that require you to use a different set of tools.
Right. And then you reach day 3 and you get to experience Bailey's. Um, Holy cow. Day 3 was a day where we paddled 21 miles that day, and we'd gone through a bunch of crazy rapids up till lunchtime and made our way through them. I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, some of the stuff that I went through, like I just remember the feeling of like whooshing through it and watching the next wave come up and hoping that the boat goes over it, and doing what they call surfing on the top of wave, not intentionally, uh, and that they're cheering. They're like, oh, you got to have that experience, and finding yourself turned backwards in the middle of rapids and figuring out how to paddle and turn yourself back around and being like, oh my gosh, I did that. That was so cool. And then having somebody else celebrate you because you did it. And it was really amazing. And
We're having close calls and then you like yipping and yawing and yeah, just because
right?
you did it.
And so day 3 we have lunch, and then with a full belly, you put on that lovely hug of a life jacket, and then we get the instruction of what our first wave is, and drawing in the sand. Here's the edges of the river. Here's the rocks right here you've got to avoid. You're going to come in through the middle, and then you're going to follow, and you're going to hook a hard right because you want to stay out of this bowl right here, and then you'll just swoop on down the wave, and stay to the right. Stay to the right. Paddle hard. Get yourself to the right. You'll be fine. Feeling the nerves, and making sure that I have space between me and other boats because I don't want to bump into other boats while I'm in there, and but staying close enough that you feel the safety of the guides. And I went in first to that one, and I remember feeling pretty confident, like, okay, I can do this. I've paddled these other challenging waves, and I was nervous, but I did fine. Just get yourself in your body, Jen. Trust that your body knows what to do, and paddle. And I go in and I'm paddling and I'm paddling. I'm trying to get myself to the right. And the next thing I know, I'm in the water and I see my boat and I'm trying to grab my boat. And then I recognize that I have my paddle in my hand, and it's amazing how many things go through your mind. And I'm being swooshed around, and I'm feeling rocks on my feet, and I'm seeing the whiteness of the waves eating me up, and I'm thinking, get your feet downstream. And I remember saying to myself, don't panic, don't panic, don't panic. Like this has an end, because they reminded us At the end of every wave is calm. At the end of every wave is calm. And you could see them waiting in the calm for us after every rapid. And particularly this one. And I was like, is that calm ever going to come? And as I'm self-talking myself, hanging onto my paddle like crazy and waiting for that to come and feeling the intensity of what I was experiencing. And I remember reaching the boat and Jack was like, are you good? Are you okay? Let's give you a little bit of a rest. Reaching down, and he pulls me up into the boat, and I hear him say, "Get Ligia." And I look over and I'm seeing Lia's red hat bobbing through the waves, and I'm just so many thoughts went through my mind. And then came the biggest choice probably of the whole.
To get in the boat after that. Yeah. It was...
Do you stay in the big boat or do you get back in the ducky? Because it was scary. It felt scary. And how many times in life do we do that? Things feel scary and we think, I can just stay in the big boat. Which, you know what? And if you stay in the big boat, it's totally okay. It's totally okay. But we made the decision to do what, Ligia?
Get back in the duckies.
Get back in the duckies. That was our first rapid after lunch.
There was a lot of rapids that day too. A lot of big ones.
Ton of rapids that day and big ones, which meant that every time a new wave came up, I got to experience just that added layer of like, oh my gosh, I know what I just went through and I don't want to do that again. And that recommitting to like get back in your body and to trust and to breathe and to just keep paddling through the waves, singing your way through the waves. Mine looked like this, like breathing. There might have been a song in there somewhere, but I just focused on breathing. And I remember we went to another big rapid and I was sitting on the top of it and I looked down and you could see that next wave come up. And I was just like, ah! Like what? And I get up to the top of it and I find myself surfing on the top of it. And I'm having to self-talk like, don't panic, and I'm feeling the boat want to go backwards, which means I'm going to go swimming. And I had a lot of motivation in that moment to not go swimming. So I instinctively said, trust your body. And I just started paddling. And then all of a sudden I feel myself go over the wave and I hear the boys behind me going, woohoo! And I was like, oh, and I'm like, ah! But again, just that support of the team and the energy of that and the power and the confidence that it built to get back in the ducky and to move through the stuff. At the end of the day, I don't know about Ligia. At the end of the day, I was tired. I was so tired and I was emotionally tired. Like, what just happened in like the most beautiful ways.
Yeah.
Baileys. We all have Baileys.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for myself, that was my second swim. So I broke the, I think there was a part of me that wanted to practice what that would look like. I swear. And just the whole self-rescue and, you know, honestly, I am one to push boundaries that way. I am one to, see what happens. Is that what it really looks like? I don't think it's a conscious thing. But I do find myself in those spaces of like, I'm going to try and see what happens and feeling safe enough to do that. I think Bailey's was definitely a more intense experience. And just for me, it felt like being in a washing machine and just really trying to remember, like, I'm not alone. there's people around, and that I'll find my way, and just trusting in that. But definitely just navigating the rest of the rapids that day was challenging, because there's that, like, I don't want to swim again, and I didn't like the experience of watching you swim. Like, that freaked me out. um, the weirdest thing is, like, I had the GoPro on and you were ahead of me, and then the water ate you, and I had this like moment of like, oh my god, I'm going to shut this off, because I don't know what it is. I didn't feel that moment needed to be recorded further. And I think because it freaked me out. And then I think I just got lost in that feeling, and then probably didn't, I don't even know what I did in that moment, but I got eaten up too. And um, I think I was more nervous to see you swim again. And or just like, just the feeling of that. Because I do recognize in myself that I can just like throw myself into stuff sometimes. And I think that's why I surround myself with the people that I do, because they help me recognize my blind spots, and maybe where I need to be paying more attention. And I found myself more in that space the rest of that day. And just, I'm like, am I reading this right? Am I like, just, I found myself more in a space of wanting to question, and just and really not wanting to have Bailey's experience again. Um, but I I did want to be back in the duckies, and just because it's a whole different experience being in the duckies. There's more, I feel like, autonomy. You have choice in which way you're going to go and how you're going to navigate through it, and you get to
To a degree,
Yeah.
you have choice. Well, no, you have choice, but there's
Yeah.
there's a safe choice, and there's a you're going to have an experience kind of choice.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And, there's those moments, like, I think of, when you're talking about navigating some of the rapids after, I think of a couple times where I'm almost going to swim, because I feel my boat getting sucked back in, and my feet go up.
That
And
one
then I'm
was so crazy to watch.
like,
I remember sitting there with Ellie watching that you come off of that wave, and she was doing it beautifully, and then all of a sudden her boat is turned sideways going into this wave, and you see her leg come up over, and you're like, oh, she's going swish. She corrected it, like, woohoo! It was amazing to see how, like, those kinds of experiences, and how again we just let our bodies take over and start doing what it knows how to do. And I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
It was cool. It was definitely, at the end of that day, I was ready to be done. Like, it was, there was a lot to process in that day, and just even physically, just moving through through all those rapids. And I think for myself, every time I swam, it does something to you. Like, it sets you in that fight or flight response. And I found myself wanting to override it and just like be okay. Whereas you need to take a moment to just rest and calm your system, and let it know it's okay. And that if you don't just pop back into the boat, that's okay too. Like, just give yourself a second to just calm. But I found that interesting, noticing like my want to override that and just jump past it. But it's just part of the whole process. And I think that's me, like, telling myself I'm not actually afraid of what just happened, or I didn't get freaked out by that. Like, I'm totally fine. And then I think, how else am I doing that in my life, and how else do I practice that?
Then I was like, no, that freaked me out. Like, that freaked me out. And then looking at what it was, and how to move past that, and to recognize what inside me was freaked out, and going through that process. So the next couple days were beautiful days, some long paddles, beautiful, again, just beautiful canyon scenery. And we saw a bear while we were out there. We saw some mountain goats and sheep, some birds, an eagle, uh, us looking like crazy wild animals because we've just been in the water. That was the other thing is we packed our bags and we used very little of the stuff in our bags. And just the lesson of like, how much do we actually really need in order to function in our everyday lives? And some of the stuff that was actually good to have with us in case it weathered, because we did have a day that it weathered. Luckily that day when it was super weather, we were actually inside of one of the places that we'll stop at, called Buckskin Bills.
Yeah, Buckskin Bills.
And again, I don't want to share too much about that. It's an incredible story. It's a cool place to stop. So we actually were sheltered as it was downpouring on the river. So that's something that, again, just like, how much do we really need? How much shiz are we packing around that we don't actually need, and when we could lighten our loads? And so that's one of the things that we'll talk to you about. We're going to look at the packing list and maybe do some rearranging of that. The part where we basically lived in our swimming suits, and I would change my top and sleep in a tank top at night, but I just wore my swim trunks. And the only time we had shoes on was when we were in the boats, or when we had a day where we'll go on a little bit of a hike. And other than that, it was barefoot. Like, we really had the opportunity to really be present with where we were at. And I found myself coming home just being like, I don't wear my shoes very often here anyway, but I was missing the sand. I was missing the opportunity to just go be in the water and to just be in the surroundings. And our sleeping arrangements were pretty rad as well. And that's, you want to talk about that, Leah? What that was like?
I was just gonna say that was I have never slept outside overnight without being in some sort of enclosure. And in this case, it would have been a tent. And I had my concerns about bugs. I did not want to be creepy crawled and eaten by bugs and mosquitoes and all the things. And the one thing that I think it was Ellie said, don't worry, the bugs will go to bed at some point. And and
they do.
Yeah, they totally do. They get really pesky around dusk, and then they're like gone. So it was a really cool experience. We set up the tent just in case, but we
only set it up on the first night and the last night. We thought it was going to rain on the last night, so we set it up as a just in case. Yeah. And the first night, just, I don't know, because we did.
The first night, because I wasn't sure if I was going to be okay with it, and it was there just in case. So, but it was amazing. It was amazing to fall asleep under the stars and then just see at different
breeze over your face.
Yeah, just different points of waking and seeing the different colors of the sky, or the trees against the sky, or how it just changed as the sun was starting to come up. And it was beautiful to not be enclosed and just be in full nature, in nature's full elements, and just have the coolness when you wake up in the morning and the breeze. And it was just beautiful. And every night after that, we just slept out in the open, it was unnerving the first night, but then it was just the most beautiful thing. So definitely something I've missed since being off the river, which is just an awesome experience.
Before we get to the last day, I will say this. You will not go hungry. You will be extremely well fed. And that was a really just beautiful, incredible experience on the river. Every meal, so much care and love goes into it, and the food is.
Oh yeah,
and huge kudos to our baby guides, our soul siblings, who
Soul siblings. I like that one.
Our soul siblings. It was so much fun to watch them step into that part of their work on the river, and watching the camaraderie and actually experiencing them doing the meals and the love that goes into it. Like that it really is part of the flavor and the nourishing that comes from being fed, literally fed for your physical body, but then just the soul feeding that comes is it.
Well, just the joy and pride in presenting what they've made, you know, and just I just love watching them work, whether it was the actual preparing or doing dishes, or like it was joyful to just watch them and listen to them. And you know, they'd come and chat with us, and it was beautiful opportunity to get to know them and just see how what makes them tick, and what brought them to this place in their lives. And you know, where the one question that comes up for me a lot is Jack asking us, like 20-year-old Jack asking us I think we had asked him what's advice you would give, or think about something you would want to share with people. And he's like, well, what advice would you have for me? And he said it was such like enthusiasm and genuineness. Like he really was open to hearing what we had to share. And I think the best that we could give him is like, keep following your heart and keep doing the things that you're doing. And it's amazing to see these kids in so much wisdom and so much life already. And just all the life that, you know, that I've gotten to experience to get to some of those lessons and some of those points, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah. It was, yeah, it's just a beautiful thing to watch. And to listen to them was
I getting Sebastian in my head, or like Jack, and they come up and they're so happy, like, you know, the bruschetta bread or whatever.
Oh
like,
my gosh. Yes. Well,
so
and you know what?
Joy.
One of the things I still miss the most is hearing the four of them sit together and laugh. I miss their giggles. I miss their conversation and hearing that. And then the conversation that we had together. I mean, the river was amazing. That experience itself was amazing, but it's all the other things that helped build the depth of the experience. And that's one of the pieces I miss the most. Like I wish we had a recording of that, because if I was having a date, I would just play that. It just, how it warmed my heart and just made my insides bubble with excitement was amazing. Okay, so the last day we wake up, we slept, Leah and I slept on the rocks. Our mats were on the rocks. We weren't on the rocks. And we were probably 12 feet from the water. Like we were like on the edge of the water. It was incredible. And we're looking down the canyon that we're going to go into the next morning. And, you know, there's thunder bumpers overhead, and we have this incredible night where we didn't have to get in the tent, and which was just, I was so grateful for that. And I wake up the next morning, and I'm feeling badgered. Like my mind is badgering me, because I know that we have 3 or 4 miles left is all. And it was an early morning start because we were catching a flight, supposedly. That stuff we will maybe share about at another time. But it was an early morning start, and we had to be to the takeout early. And they still prepared breakfast for us, which was incredible. Like we thought we were just going to do snacks and hot drinks, and there was full on breakfast. Again, so just the feeding of the body and the feeding of the soul. And I was really emotional that morning. I think knowing it was our last day and I wasn't ready for it to end. I think I was probably feeling tiredness that I wasn't recognizing. But that I also was being badgered because I knew there were 2 big waves still. And they had shared with us and what they were, and that they're like, you can get through them. You've made all these other waves. You can totally get through these ones. And it was these moments of like bumping up against my enoughness, bumping up against my if I ride the big raft, because I really wanted to have the experience too of riding the big rafts through the big waves so that I could tell you what that experience is like, and not just the experience of the ducky, because it's a 180, it's a completely different experience. And I just remember feeling so emotional, and I had a lot of energy moving through me, and I'm kicking my legs at breakfast, and I can't eat very much, and there were tears, and being able to say to the guide like, hey, my mind is really messing with me this morning, and having this beautiful conversation of like, you can get in the big raft, like you don't have to do this. Um and having Leah talk about like, you know what, it doesn't mean anything about me if I decide to get in the big boat for the last 4 miles, and to have that experience. And it was just interesting, the stuff that was bumping up. It's just amazing what comes up for you while you're on the water, and which is part of what we're creating for you. um so you get to bump up against yourself that way, and have this beautiful, uh, loving, empowering support group to like chat the things out, where it's safe for you to chat the things out and to come to a bigger truth of what those things are for you, versus keeping them inside and letting them continue to batter and beat you. And ultimately, I made the decision to ride the big boat, and I felt myself relax, which for me, I'm like, I knew I was making the best decision for me on that day. And it was really cool to be on the big boats and to see what